And now for my next number, I'd like to return to the
classic. Time.
Hey everyone, it's Alex back again with another video. I'm doing the movie soundtrack tag in this video. This was started by Beth over at B-Side Records. She is doing this. So there's 10 questions just about movie soundtracks. I do like a good movie soundtrack. It's just a section I wish I could work on a bit more. As you'll probably find out when we get to the last question. And as you can see over here, I do like my movies. But what you can't see is all the movies over here and over there. It's like an old blockbuster in here. But yeah, it's my room's like an old blockbuster. So, you know, I guess I like my movies. There's a lot of soundtracks I like. There's some I don't. But yeah, let's waste no more time on this. On these 10 questions. So let's get into it. First question: the first soundtrack you ever bought? And for me, at least the first one on vinyl I know I ever bought is the soundtrack to Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Obviously from 1977. This was Italian pressing of this soundtrack. Pretty decent copy there. The movie's pretty dated, but you know, what can you do for a movie from the 70s that's you know, still ahead of its time for at the time, but now looks very, very dated. So, you know, yeah, good soundtrack. Really like the score for this one, but just a shame the movie's pretty lackluster. It's music by John Williams, which is kind of what made me buy the soundtrack. I didn't know the film at all. I knew the composer and the director of the film, which is Steven Spielberg. But yeah, great combination there. Classic combination. But yeah, that is the first soundtrack I ever bought. And I didn't have to tell you all that other information there, but I want to extend this video beyond however long it's going to be. The second question to this tag is, what's the newest soundtrack to your collection? And I think I've gone over this a couple of times, but I have the soundtrack to 1917, composed by, well, music by Thomas Newman. One of my favourite films of last year, 2019. I really enjoyed this war film. This is on green, beautiful see-through green vinyl. And yeah, this is the newest soundtrack to my collection, which I've already shown in a couple of previous videos, but I'll show it here as well. This is the soundtrack to 1917, like I said, one of my favourite films of last year. Question 3, the soundtrack you listen to the most. This might not be the film I watch the most, but it's definitely a soundtrack I go to a lot just because of how diverse it is, and that's the soundtrack to Baby Driver. I get the movie's a bit hard to watch because of Kevin Spacey and what have you, but I really like the film. I have since it came out. But if you look at what's on here, you've got Brighton Rock by Queen, Baby Driver by Simon and Garfunkel, Never Never Gonna Give You Up by Barry White, Know How by Young MC, Easy by the Commodores, Neat 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 by the Damned is on here, Button Down Brass, Tequila is on here, you got Deborah by T-Rex and then Deborah by Beck also on here, and loads of other great artists and songs. So very diverse soundtrack, and that's the main reason I go to this soundtrack a lot, is just because it's so diverse and there's a mixture of everything on it. So that's definitely the soundtrack I listen to the most. Where are we at? Question 4. Your favourite composer. Now, I only have... my favourite film composer is quite modern, and his soundtracks can be quite expensive unless you get them when they first come out. And I've had a few good deals on these, but Hans Zimmer is my favourite film composer. So I have... And unfortunately, I only have 2 of his soundtracks, because like I said, they're very expensive on vinyl because of how popular the movies become, and then because of how collectible they become as well, because it's Hans Zimmer. But I do have the Dark Knight soundtrack on vinyl. Again, one of my favourite films. Love The Dark Knight, my favourite Batman movie. So I had to get this when I had when I got a good deal on it. But yeah, very cool soundtrack to have there. And then I do also have another one from him, which I have an unboxing of on the channel, and that's the soundtrack to Blade Runner 2049, my favourite film of 2017. Hans Zimmer's done a lot of my favourite film scores in recent years. Blade Runner, The Dark Knight, he did the film score to Interstellar, Inception, he's even done the film score to The Lion King. So, of course, he's done a lot of my favourite films. So, hence why he's also one of my favourite film composers. And going on to the next question, favourite instrumental score. This film was in the running for that, but I could not let it beat my #1 favourite film ever. The score for that, and I know this soundtrack's not all score from the movie, but it has got obviously the theme song to the movie, and that's Back to the Future. The score to this, although the actual soundtrack itself is mostly the songs written for the movie and used in the movie, the score from the film I think is incredible. I love it. Everything about Back to the Future I love. Well, it's my favourite film of all time, so what can I say? But yeah, love this film score, and I had to put that as my answer number 5. Favourite instrumental score? No, it's not actually an instrumental score, but I had to mention it because it is my favourite film of all time and I wanted to throw it in somewhere. But favourite instrumental score, how can you go wrong with Star Wars Empire Strikes Back? Huge Star Wars nut. Wish I had more of the soundtracks on vinyl. Believe it or not, there's only one of them I actually own on vinyl. This one I have on CD, one of the 2 that I have on CD. And yeah, that's probably, thinking about it, that is probably my favourite instrumental score. So I had to give that a little shout out there. Question 6, an awesome movie with a horrible soundtrack. I'm going to sort of bend the question a tiny bit because I don't think this film I'm going to show you is awesome. It's just okay to me, but I do not like the score for this film, and the only reason I really own it is because the film to me is just okay, and that is the Maze Runner. I like the first 2 Maze Runner films. I prefer the second Maze Runner film to the first, but I don't think that soundtrack is on vinyl. Like I said, I really only own this one because there's a couple of decent things on it, but I really do not feel much for the soundtrack to this film. And like I said, it is not an awesome movie, it's just okay to me. So yeah, Maze Runner. My answer to question 6, an awesome movie with a horrible soundtrack. But flipping it the other way, question 7, a soundtrack that is better than the movie. Again, I could have gone with a few. I talked about Close Encounters at the beginning of the video, where I don't think the movie is that great. It's very dated, but I do think it's a good score. But the one I've decided to go with, is The Omen. I am a big fan of horror films. Unfortunately, I think this is the only horror soundtrack I own. Thinking about it. But I really did not like this movie. I had the soundtrack because, again, bought it out on a whim. Just on the cover, and I could tell what it was going to be like. I really enjoyed the score for this, but the movie is boring and dull and very dated, and I just do not like the movie. So, although it's the only horror soundtrack I own, it's a good one to have because it's a very nice. It fits the movie well, the theme of the film, but yeah, the film's just dull. But the soundtrack's incredible. I do think the soundtrack is incredible, so that's why I have it. A song by your favorite artist or band that features on a soundtrack. Again, my favorite band is Arctic Monkeys. I've said this in multiple videos before. However, the only soundtrack that has an Arctic Monkeys song on that I know of that's on vinyl, I don't have it. I don't know why I don't have it, because it's not really Arctic Monkeys, it's just the lead singer Alex Turner doing the soundtrack to that. So I guess that's why I don't have it. But the one I've decided to go with is the soundtrack to The Woman in Red, which of course features music from Stevie Wonder. Of course I am a big Stevie Wonder fan. He's my favourite solo artist, so I had to go with that, The Woman in Red. Half Stevie Wonder, half Dionne Warwick, but you get, of course, I just have the Stevie Wonder songs because I'm a Stevie Wonder fan. Can't help it. There you go. Woman in Red. Question number 9. Share a soundtrack you think everyone should own. Out of all the soundtracks I had, it was really it was between the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack or the one I'm going to go with. And the reason I'm going with this one is because I know out of the people that are watching, there may be more. Personally, although I prefer the actual soundtrack to Saturday Night Fever because it's disco and there's a lot of great stuff on it. As a movie, I prefer this, and that's Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. This is one of my favourite films of all time. I think the score is incredible. This, of course, is the reissue from last year that comes on Boulder Grey vinyl. But yeah, I do love this film. I think it's great. I've always thought the film score to this was great. So I do think everyone should own this. While I still think everyone should own Saturday Night Fever. That's like a soundtrack to listen to if you want music to dance. You can also dance around to that. If you just want this film score that you can listen to and just sort of have one in the background, Raiders of the Lost Ark is the one I can recommend. And that swiftly leads us into question 10, soundtrack grails and wants. Now, there's a lot. And of course, going from Raiders of the Lost Ark, I'd love to own Temple of Doom and The Last Crusade on vinyl because there are other Indiana Jones films that I like. I don't like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but find me somebody who does. But yeah, I'd love to own Temple of Doom and The Last Crusade. I'd love to own Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi on vinyl. Rise of Skywalker I'd love to have on vinyl, even though the film wasn't great. I love the score again. The Force Awakens on vinyl, but with the holographic, the one that projects the hologram of the Millennium Falcon. That one I'd love to have. The original 1968 Planet of the Apes film score, I would love to have that on vinyl, as well as War for the Planet of the Apes there, and if Dawn for the Planet of the Apes is on vinyl as well, I'd love to own that. They're maybe my top 3 Planet of the Apes films. Jaws, that soundtrack, I'd love to have that. I had another one in my mind that I can't... Oh yeah, Alien and Aliens. I would love to have those two soundtracks on vinyl as well. But again, all the soundtracks that I'm pretty much listing are all very expensive on vinyl. The Mad Max Fury Road soundtrack, I think that is an incredible soundtrack, so I would love to have that. The Mad Max Fury Road. Also Deadpool, Suicide Squad soundtracks would be brilliant. Trying to look through my movies, seeing if it sparks anything, but they're really the ones that I can think of most that I'd love to have on vinyl. So yeah, that's I think that's gonna do it for this video. The movie soundtrack tag. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new here, if you are new here, please subscribe. And if you subscribed already, make sure the bell notification switched on. That way you guys never miss an upload. And yeah, with that, that's going to do it for this video. So guys, thanks again for tuning in. And I'll see you again very soon. Peace.